Welcome to our journey through this incredible story of the most amazing woman peace leader in human history, Mother Moon, Dr. Hak Moon, otherwise known as the Mother of Peace. We're continuing today now in chapter 5. I hope you're reading along. Let's dive right in. The title of this message is Culture is Not a Luxury, It is Essential. Picture this. It was the autumn of 1965 in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, a place well known as the place of President Lincoln's famous Civil War address. That day in 1965, former Dwight D. Eisenhower sat and witnessed for the first time in his life, in fact, the first time in human history, the pure and intoxicating beauty of the very first Little Angels performance. This beautiful young dance troupe of young Korean girls performing their hearts out on the world stage only a handful of years after the ceasefire of the devastating Korean War. You know, from the very beginning, despite the extreme challenges they faced, Father and Mother Moon were patrons of art, patrons of the culture of heart for the sake of world peace. Let's read. If we were to capture the distinctive feature of the Unification movement in one phrase, it would be the culture of filial heart. Filial heart, for which I coined the Korean word hyojeong, signifies sincere devotion and love toward our heavenly parent. The culture of heart transcends time and space. And Mother is longing for us to experience it and evangelize this heavenly culture around the world. Heaven's desire is for humanity to experience a culture that flows forth like a river of artistic creativity. That is how life is meant to be. And Father and Mother Moon have had their eyes fixed on this goal from the very beginning, even when it seemed like an impossible dream. During the Korean War, I saw many talented artists who were poor and homeless, seeking refuge and unable to display their work. During this time of Korea's post-war poverty, few people believed in the power of music and dance. No one even listened when my husband and I talked about culture and the arts. All they did was shake their heads and say, "It's difficult just finding enough to eat. Don't waste your time thinking about culture." But in my view, culture is not a luxury. It is a life essential. So who was it that shook their heads in dismay, do you think? Many complaints actually came from the members. Their first argument was that if we lacked the money to build a church, how could we raise money to run a song and dance troupe? But my husband and I remained steadfast, and eventually everyone united behind the Little Angels of Korea. Okay, so they started with literally nothing, not even a space to practice. Eventually, they were given a free space in an old, broken, and unheated warehouse. It was so cold that the girls only had their breath to warm their hands in the winter. This was how the Little Angels started. Of course, word got out, and they were again mocked by their aggressors. They said things like, "Angels fly in heaven." But those girls looked like they're splashing around in a swamp. Can you imagine how those young girls felt? But they never, ever gave up. Listen. They kept the Little Angels' motto in their hearts. A beautiful heart makes a dance beautiful. A beautiful heart makes a song beautiful. A beautiful heart makes a face beautiful. For 3 years, they went through intense training, shedding sweat and tears. After that training, they departed on a world tour with the grand slogan, "Let's take the Korean flag to the world." it wasn't just about art for art's sake. The mission was to raise awareness of the beauty of the Korean history and culture. Think of it. Take the Korean flag to the world. It was only a few pages ago, a few decades ago, that we were listening to True Mother tell the story of her grandmother and her mother surviving the onslaught of Japanese police, stopping them from even waving their flag in their own country. And now, a few decades on, they're flying around the world with these young innocent girls to take the Korean flag to the world. And this 1965 performance for President Dwight D. Eisenhower was their very, very first appearance. After the concert, President Eisenhower reminisced about his 1952 visit to Korea and praised the dance troupe highly. "It's as if heaven's angels have come down to earth," he said with a gentle smile. They continued on, performing all over the United States. It was a totally new experience for these Western audiences. At first, they would grimace because of the unfamiliarity with the art form. Nonetheless, audiences became mesmerized and tears would flow from their eyes. These beautiful, innocent little girls were exuding the richness of Korean culture from every pore of their being, melting the hearts of the audience everywhere they went. Mother says, a child alone may not make much impact, but when a group of children come together and sing with pure hearts, their voices can melt the hardened hearts and dispel war and conflict. Simply put, they dominated. Later, they were invited to perform for the royal family in the United Kingdom. Listen. Such an invitation had never before been extended to a performer from anywhere in the Far East, let alone Korea. The dancers quickly packed their bags. Reaching London required that they change planes several times. At the Royal Variety performance at the London Palladium, held for Queen Elizabeth II in 1971, among all the outstanding performers, these beautiful girls from the Republic of Korea were a bright light. Their cute yet dynamic and colorful dances brought several standing ovations. The event was highlighted in the newspapers and on television the next day. In the minds of the British people, Korea was no longer a cultural backwater, but rather a nation with a vibrant artistic tradition. You see, this is the power of art. It cuts through everything. It is a universal language of the heart, and it can overpower everything else. The Little Angels continued to grow and perform around the world in front of presidents, in front of prime ministers at the United Nations. They made over 800 television appearances, visited over 80 nations, 5 continents, and performed over 7,000 times. A well-known project was their 22-nation tour honoring the Allied forces that supported South Korea in the Korean War. And Mother shares a heartwarming story about their visit to Africa, to Ethiopia and South Africa on that world tour. Listen. In the 1980s, when communists took power in Ethiopia, they displaced all the Korean War veterans to a camp on the outskirts of Addis Ababa. In reality, that place was like a concentration camp. The veterans shared painful memories of how the regime had persecuted them and how they had to sell their medals to provide for their families. When they saw the Little Angels, they were moved to tears as they realized that the poor, ragged, divided nation of Korea was now a developed nation ready to thank them. The happy ending is that the Little Angels concert brought the veterans' plight to the attention of the present government, which is now making up for past mistreatment. Amazing. And here is another example, another mention that we cannot forget, because this one is in our very own Nepal. Listen. After a warm welcome by the Nepalese students and citizens upon the arrival in Kathmandu, The Little Angels performed brilliantly at the inauguration of the International Association of Parliamentarians for Peace, an event that took place in 2016. The Nepalese were deeply moved by the concert held at the Presidential Palace as well as in other performance halls, and their media gave the Little Angels high praise. The Little Angels are representatives who are answering God's call. They are guardian angels spreading peace worldwide. Father and Mother Moon invested a lot into the Little Angels, but also into ballet, music, and the arts, and even sports. These are all experiences that serve to bring people together and excel in our crafts. True Mother is encouraging all of us not only to enjoy this culture, but to invest in it, to honor it, and to support it. So how can we, in our own lives, create an environment of heart? What do you see around you, in your home and in your community, that expresses this culture of heart? Not everyone will be creating a world-famous dance troupe in their spare time, but the culture of heart can be found in the tiniest of things, in how we treat one another, and even how we speak to one another. The words that we choose to express ourselves can be an art form. The food that we cook can be an expression of our hearts and rendered as an art form. I believe that many of us spend a lot of time simply trying to survive the day. We may be burdened with concerns over health, food, and money for the sake of our survival. But if that is the case, no one would judge you for brushing off the idea of culture and art. Just as there is no one in the world that would expect an impoverished nation to focus on its arts. But at the same time, when the nation of Korea was at its lowest point, Father and Mother didn't think of art as a luxury. Rather, they understood it was the very thing needed to advance the will of heaven. It was essential. So, the same would be true for each of us. Whether rich or poor, single or married, what is it that we can do in our lives to advance the culture of heart artistically? I believe it must start with a heart of gratitude for what we already have. Take time to look and pay attention and notice the beauty that already surrounds us, to notice the things that we are already given, to notice the heart and the art forms that are already invested into everything that we have and everything in our lives. It must start with a desire to take care of what we have already been given. And how can those daily chores like cooking and cleaning and working and studying, how can these seemingly simple events in our lives be performed with gratitude and with beauty? How can our actions be offered to heaven as a beautiful and artful expression of our heavenly character? We should ask ourselves this question. This is something that we can all reflect on. Furthermore, those among us who are gifted with creative talents should be recognized and supported. I'm looking forward to doing whatever I can to uplift our creative artists, because actually these are our greatest assets in terms of influencing society. Don't you think so? Yes. Listen. People often think that politics moves the world, but that is not the case. It is culture and art that move the world. It is affection, not reason, that touches people in their innermost being. When hearts become receptive, ideologies and political regimes can change. Half a century ago, the Little Angels set out to bring Korean culture to the world. They were a harbinger of the Korean wave, including K-pop, that is currently sweeping the world. Wherever you go in the world, cheers and applause for Korean culture abound. The beginning point of this phenomenon was the Little Angels concert at Gettysburg in 1965. I rest my case. Now, let's make some music and share the beauty of heavenly culture through the arts and through everything we do. It's not a pastime and it's not a luxury. It is essential. So let us enjoy it together. Thank you, brothers and sisters. God bless you, and see you next time.